In the previous video, when I looked at that angle where my theta was 7 pi over 6, I broke it up into pi plus pi over 6. Well, that was me making a reference angle. It's much nicer to think about acute angles, especially when they're some of our special angles. So when we have an obtuse angle, and here I'm taking obtuse to actually be obtuse or reflex, so basically any angle that's not acute, I'm going to want to break it up into smaller parts. And my smallest part I want to be have a terminal side of theta, and I want another side to be the x-axis when I'm making my reference angle, and this time the x-axis can be either on the positive side or the negative side. So here, I go to my terminal side and then go to the nearest x-axis, and it's not always going to be, oh yeah, it will always be acute, sorry. So in this case, there is my reference angle. Here I go from terminal side to the nearest x-axis. There's my reference angle. And obviously I've shaded more space than just the angle. The angles have been mapped out for us in red here to show where it is. But basically I'm going terminal arm and then the nearest x-axis. I can then use this reference angle in a positive way, but think about the quadrant that my terminal arm is in to help me know whether my trig ratios will end up being positive or negative. And we're going to get into that just coming up shortly. But first, let's think about angles in standard position and the reference angles. So I'm going to put in a couple of axes here. Put in another one over here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, if I was going to draw this, I would know that 225 is between 180 and 270. So I know it's somewhere in here. But even more specifically, I know it's past 180 degrees. So I'm going to break this up into a sum and say that that's 180 degrees plus 45 degrees. And now that helps me draw it accurately. So 45 degrees is exactly halfway between those two. And so now my reference angle, theta prime, is 45 degrees. So here's my full angle, theta. And then my reference angle, we think of as being positive, and we call that theta prime, which was our 45 degrees. Now let's look at negative 7 pi over 6. So negative 7 pi over 6 is going to be negative pi and another, oh goodness, I don't want to make a trapezoid, negative pi and another negative pi over 6. So I'm going to draw that in. So if I'm going to sketch it out fully, that's how I'm going to make theta. I'm even thinking to myself that this is negative pi minus 7 pi, minus pi over 6. But my reference angle, I'm not going to say is negative pi. My reference angle I think of as going in the positive direction. So my reference, stop making shapes. My reference angle is going to be just the positive pi over 6. And then I know that it's in quadrant 2, so that's going to help me down here.